Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Gotcha. Todd?
Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Todd?
Hello?
Yeah,
Can you hear
gotcha. All right, awesome.
Tough crowd, tough crowd.
Yeah, no, I like it. Welcome everyone to our first Spotlight session for the year. Today I'm really excited that we're actually joined by two incredible humans who I've had the pleasure of working with over the past few months. And I'd first like to welcome Todd Ritchie and Van Fleischer. Guys, thank you very much for taking time to Spotlight.
Thank you, Marty.
So you guys, Todd, I'll kick off with you. Would you mind just giving the audience a quick introduction of yourself and Real Sales Solutions?
Sure. Real Sales Solutions, we're a management consulting company that helps our clients to execute their strategic initiatives working with and through their people. Van and I have been working in the industry for combined about 50 years. And we have prided ourselves over that period of time to ensure that our clients have had sustainability in all the projects in which we've worked with them. And we'll talk to greater detail on that. Fantastic.
Van?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially been our mantra. I retired a few years ago from 25 years of ensuring sustainability in our clients' projects. And wrote 3 fiction novels. And as it turned out with the pandemic, the truth is much stranger than fiction. And the fiction is actually turning into truth. So it's very confusing to me. So yeah. I had to welcome the opportunity to get back into the real world, whatever that means these days, and working at top.
Yeah, love it. And Van, you're always colorful when we get on calls. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to our calls because I get something different every time. It's brilliant. I love it. I love it. So, hey guys, and I will fully disclose to the audience as well. So, and I apologize, I should have done this in the introduction. Real Sales Solutions is a partner of stratapp. Real Sales Solutions is helping us go to market in the US. And Real Sales Solutions is also a client of stratapp as well. And there may be some drop without the high level promotions of some of their ways that they're using stratapp as well. So so first of all, thank you guys. Thank you for the partnership and the clientele as well. So I really thank you for that on behalf of the team at stratapp. Now, Todd, I'd love to start with you because you and I are having a brilliant conversation the other day about sustainable leadership and ownership. And when you said it to me, it caught me. And I'd love you to share with the audience, what do you mean by that? And how does it play a role in helping organizations become successful?
Well, it's always been fascinating to me, and it still is 20 years later, that we would come in the door of large corporations, very big companies, that seem to do the same consulting projects every 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And the reason that happens is because the consultants will come in and they'll put in a new system or a new process or a new software, and they will install that system or process, but they've never completely spent the time or the training to ensure that that culture or process is embedded into the organization. Mm-hmm. And part of the problem is what we've seen is on the part of the companies that don't budget enough money to ensure that it's going to have the length of time to get that sustainability, or the length of time or dollars it's going to need to train those people to ensure that you're going to get adoption of that new software or process. And nothing comes easy. Change is difficult. And the way to ensure that you get sustainable change is to get that understanding, that ownership, and that buy-in from the people at the point of execution, at the point of adoption. And what we've always discovered and always found is that people want to work. I mean, they work really hard. And they're also experts at finding workarounds or ways around a bad process. If there's something wrong, they know what it is, and they all talk about it themselves. Management might not understand what's happening, but they do incredible things to find a way to make things work. So a lot of the times they're being hindered. So even going in and understanding what's the root cause and where the problems are stemming from, to be able to not, at least get their voice and their fingerprints or tackiness onto that, develop the solution so they have ownership. And then it's just a matter of ensuring that once you've developed a good process or system, that you continue to do it, just like any habit. The more that you do it, the more that you use it, the better you get at it, the more that becomes the way of doing things. There's no magic sauce here, but you just keep touching it until it becomes the way of doing things. And then as that journey happens, there's ups and downs, but at some point you start seeing the benefit. And you start seeing performance not only improve, but to sustain and to level off, so that you get that where it just doesn't disappear. And we've been very successful at doing that and very proud that we've been able to do that. But part of that process is ensuring and letting our clients know up front, this is what it's going to take. Unless you want to spend this money every 3 to 5 years, do it right the first time. And that's a critical juncture and a critical piece. And we've got some great stories on what I would consider some of the toughest areas to get sustainability and change management in. If we have time, I'd touch on a couple of those.
Yeah. No, I love it, because we actually talk about within our ideation framework at stratapp of how to engage through ideas and challenges. So if you're going to basically launch something or put something in, allow everyone to have a voice, and not a small window of a voice. Let them have an ongoing voice, because they'll give you more about what they need, that we can help shape the direction of where we're going. The one thing I will pick up with what you just said was around when I think about sustainable leadership. You talked about getting everyone's buy-in, you're hearing everyone's voice, and that's a lot more powerful to be able to go towards what we said. Let's talk about leadership for a second. So how important is it for leadership to own that change management, that transition, and not just have the idea of we need to do better? How important is it for leaders to really own that and basically lead it, as opposed to give it to somebody else to go put in and they just run off in a different direction? Love to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's critical. If you don't have the leaders' ownership and buy-in or leadership of that process, it's not going to work, because it will break down. We've done that. We've worked around it. We've tried to make it work in every single way. But if they're not on board, there's no sense in going through with that process. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
When you talk about what I really like about stratapp, and we're using it ourselves internally, is that it does all the things that you have to have done in order to get sustainability. The first thing, doesn't matter, we start out with the CEO when we have an engagement, but we ultimately are always working down at the point of execution with the frontline workers and supervisors and first line managers, because that's where the work occurs. And evidently, in almost every case, they don't have a good system, what we would call a management control system, a good system to have people accountable, responsible, and it's basic things like a shift turnover or a daily meeting, a weekly meeting, monthly meeting, quarterly meeting, yearly meeting, and how that rolls up the organization so they can plan, schedule, execute, budget, and develop the strategy for their business. And then they're trying to cascade that down through the organization. But if that whole process is broken, it doesn't work. Yeah. And what stratapp has is it has what we've been building and trying to do for years with our clients, to get that visibility, that alignment, that collaboration, that accountability. It's all built into the system, from the top going down and the bottom going back up. So it's a beautiful application, and it makes our job and our life so much easier.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, Van, I hear those words: transparency, accountability, etc. Culture. How important is culture, do you think, to organizational success? But also, I'd love to get some insight to some of the challenges you've seen in culture. And we might talk about how do we remove them, but I'd love to just get some of your thoughts on the definition of culture and how you think that maybe some of the challenges that you've seen through organizations that you experience.
Let me start off with an example of a hospital that I worked in many, many years ago. we went to the first meeting. We had weekly meetings called the steering committee meetings, weekly meetings. And of course, these were in the old days in person, no Zoom. And the first meeting, somebody, not everybody was there on time. A couple of people showed up late. And then the next thing was that when they went through the agenda, although they had all the information prior to the meeting, a number of people had not read it. And the CEO, he wanted to change the culture. And he said, okay, everyone has a pass this time. Next time, if you're not here on time, you're not at the meeting. You can't come in. Number one. Number two, you're going to come prepared. You're going to come, already read the information, and you will come prepared with your recommendations of how to proceed. It took not the second meeting, but by the third meeting, and the employees were telling us they had never seen it before. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone showed up on time. Everyone was prepared.
Yeah.
And it changed it just like that because of the leadership of the hospital. He wanted to change the culture. He wanted to have that type of organization that was responsive and responsible for everything. So that's where going back to what Todd said, is that top person. It's very, very difficult for anybody in the organization other than the top person to change the culture. In a non-Zoom environment, in a real-time environment, organizations are big. They are disconnected by geography, disconnected by number of floors in the building, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And being able to collaborate and do all of your work like in the app, like stratapp, where you're able to see those meetings, be prepared for those meetings. It's all right there. You have no excuses. And it just really makes it simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it because culture goes internal and external. I read a good article the other day about how the satisfaction of our people do really lead the satisfaction of our clients. And I think it's true. I think it's really true. And when you're talking about even that meeting example, the idea of the design behind live meetings was everyone just knows the agenda, the clear purpose. But if there's any pre-reading that needs to be done, but it's not just internally, that can actually be shared externally as well. Taking that element of that expectation. I love it because what I got out of that, clarity and leadership, observation first, which I thought was good. Observe the environment. Hey, you've got to pass, which I think is great. It wasn't automatically boom. And then say clear expectation. And then with clear expectation, we then have the knowledge to know what we need to do to improve. Right? And that team or that company alone had the ability now to all move forward with the same expectations. I love that example. So maybe give us an example of, you gave an example of a scenario within a meeting. Have you seen a really bad culture? And why was it really bad in your view? We don't need examples of companies, obviously, but why in your view was it bad?
I think there's motivated bad and there's inadvertent bad. And I think that there are some people that were just, they looked for opportunities to call people out. They were not your supportive leaders. They were looking for mistakes, as opposed to praising the little things that were done. Mm-hmm. And so it was always never a pat on the back if they got an on time in any way, shape, or form. But it was always negative when it was they really got bombarded. Right? They missed it. Yeah. So there are people like that, and there are people that don't get involved with their organization, so they're invisible. The guy at the top, the woman at the top, whoever it is, and that type of leadership, you don't know. It's like having. I mean, let's face it, a business is kind of like a family, and if your parents don't pay any attention to you, then you start to be destructive in some way, shape, or form, or you hang out with the wrong friends, or you do something. So it's that kind of family environment. I think that today, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier on a call, it's at 40% of our work seems to involve emails. And I know I'm guilty of it. Like, my phone pings, look at email. Oh yeah, it's a work thing. Oh, but what is this? Oh, there's this 3 people were killed over there, and something completely extraneous Joel, that so many distractions and diversions today in the world in social media. And that's the challenge today, because they don't, I mean, before people had the internet to see the outside world, but now they're at home. How do you, doing their work from home, more and more people, I talk to them, I hear a dog barking in the background. Is you working from home? Yeah, absolutely. And that's not going away. That's here to stay. So how do you manage those people? How do you keep them motivated? How do you keep them on focus with the job?
Yeah, I love this conversation, because I've got, I was talking to a couple of leaders that ring to mind on this over the last month, but I've got one particular one that I think of that said, Martin, it would be good, and he's looking to roll out stratapp, and he said, it'd be, what I want to do, understanding what the technology does, is if I want to look at what someone's doing, but purposely get really measured on giving them praise, acknowledging their work, and really getting in and helping also add value and remove barriers. That was the mindset. And I think just that is beautiful leadership, right? When you're doing it remotely, when you're disconnected, when you're basically looking for the negatives, very hard to lead and very hard to motivate individuals doing that. And really that's what we can do at any level of the organization. So great job, Marty. And hey, do we need Van to get involved in this? And I think maybe some ideas. I see this is moving forward fantastically. Great. Just that small introduction of that comment by a CEO or an exco in your work. It doesn't matter where you are now, you're connected. It doesn't matter where you are now, you're actually motivated by what you're doing, right? And I think this is a hot topic. I mean, something you guys are dealing with every day is how do we lead and motivate when we're not in the same room? And we have to create that environment. And if you're not sitting down and just focusing on how to create that environment, I think fragmentation of things like just human feelings that then filter into what I call the negative vortex, which I think, Van, you touched on it. You start talking to the wrong people, you start thinking about the wrong things, and then it just starts to spiral. And that does have a massive impact on productivity, culture, and the way that we move forward as well. Hey, Todd, I'd like to sort of talk about, you touched on it when you were mentioning before, alignment. And I know you're passionate about this one. Share with us the importance of it and maybe some of the things that you work with your clients on how to improve alignment.
You think about children, right? That was when your daughter came in, I was thinking about kids. Yeah. And to children, fairness is everything. It's all about fairness. You're not being fair about this and how your perception is. And I was thinking, and that just got me thinking about employees. Yeah. It's the same thing. People, if they don't feel appreciated or they don't think something is fair, how disgruntled employees come, and it's always visible to the ones at the front lines or at the workplace about this is a lousy manager. Everybody knows this is a bad manager, and how can management let this person be in? And they do all these things, but it's not fair, right? I work hard, and yet, that culture that it becomes, because you could have one rotten apple that does spoil the barrel. Yeah. So when you talk about, I guess it comes full circle back to alignment. But if the organization itself is not in line, and how do you know it's not in line? Because you as a manager, your only information is only as good as the person that's reporting up to you. Yeah. And what aren't they telling you? How can that fairness not be happening at this level? Yeah. And it can be so rotten and bad in between, and then all of a sudden it doesn't get reported up because they don't want to spill the bad news, and they don't want to spill the bad news, and they certainly don't want to give the bad news all the way up the ladder. So what visibility? I guess this comes down to visibility much more than it does alignment. But how do you have that clarity and that visibility and that alignment through your organization to accomplish the same goals? Because I guarantee you the alignment isn't to have disgruntled employees and people not telling the truth or are afraid to tell the truth to paint the right picture going up the ladder. Yeah. And in order to have that accountability, and you have to have that visibility and that alignment. It all plays together. Yeah. And I might be talking in circles, but I can see this.
No, I love it. The thing I'd add to that is it's exactly the same: transparency.
Right.
Transparency, especially in leadership.
Yep.
Right? If leaders aren't willing to be transparent, how do you create an environment of transparency, which then works towards that definition of accountability? Being okay with being truly transparent in what we are doing. And this is definitely the future workforce. In many great companies, it actually is an existing workforce, but I think a lot of us can learn from it to work out how to get everyone collaborating and moving in the same direction. And I'm also a big supporter of, and again, we've built it into the app in the sense that, you may have a younger generation come in who's just so energetic and full of ideas and they've got all this richness in their mind. But if we live in a suppressed environment, a suppressed culture, it's really hard for them to thrive. But imagine how much the organization is missing out on. Right? How do we create an environment where they can see what's happening in the organization? And so maybe something they're just passionate about, might even not be in their core responsibilities, but they're passionate about. Let's get them working on it and then let them open up about what they're passionate about and how they want to move forward. And I think at that point, and again, it doesn't matter if you're together face-to-face or remote, you're going to have a more engaged workforce as well. I'm going to hit I'm going to sort of try to wrap it up best way here, because I think we could talk, and we've spent countless hours talking. And I think there's some great stuff that we can share. And I really encourage any of the audience, if you want to reach out to Todd and Ben as well, you'll absolutely love every single minute and learn a lot. But just some last thoughts from each of you. And I'm going to be selfish for a little bit and focus on our partnership. And we've been spending a lot of time together. Starting with you, Van, what's your thought on Real Sales Solutions and stratapp's partnership and how our mutual clients can benefit?
Oh, I mean, it's no secret. We said this from the beginning. It's what got both of us out of retirement. When we saw it, we thought, wow, if we had this in the 50 plus years that we were consulting, this is the glue that will keep it all together and to drive it forward. And having that, particularly in this environment where you're not in that same office building, there isn't a water cooler anymore. There's no coffee room. It's just, this is the way to stay in touch. Touch again on the alignment issue. We used to do alignment starting at the top. We asked the top 3 or 4, 5, 6 C-suite people, say, okay, write down what your strategy is. And it was like, wow, 6 people, 6 different directions. It's amazing. How can anybody below know what that is?
Yeah.
But when you ask someone about their strategy, they have to scratch their head and think about it. And they all have different answers. I love the idea of having that strategy just memorialized, or at least to something where they can look at, and out of that comes their work. These are the things you have to do to reach these strategic goals. And I just think that's when we saw that, we thought this is something that everybody needs. And, it's nice to sell something that everybody needs, and as opposed to selling snow cones in Alaska. This is something that they all need. And we've tested this since we met, and we talk with people. And I mean, I've got a couple of people. One guy the other day just said, and he's an exciting contact of mine. He said, I just had a discussion with all of our groups. There's 6 to 8 companies desperately need this. That he was just talking with just the other day. So it's exciting.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Ben. Hey, Todd, bring us home. What's your thought on our partnership?
Marty, we love stratapp. We love working with you and your team. You are responsive. You're straightforward. You're honest. You're incredible people to work with. We love the tool. We're using it ourselves. The application is extremely intuitive, easy to set up, inexpensive to use and a dynamic tool, whether you're the CEO or the person at the shop floor, a supervisor or a manager. This gives you the ability to make your life better in your every day-to-day workspace.
Yeah.
And thanks again for the opportunity to work with you guys.
No, fantastic. So, gents, thank you very much. I really enjoyed. I love every minute we spend together. And it's one of the highlights of my week every time we get to talk, even on the mobile of stratapp, we get to talk a lot, which is great. And but first of all, thank you very much for your friendship, and thank you very much for your partnership. Thoroughly enjoy it. You tend to do your best work with people that you really gel with. And I'm a big believer of surrounding yourself with amazing people, and you're two exactly people who fit into that category for me. Thank you very much for your time, gents. And if anyone from the audience wants to reach out to Ben and Todd, as I said, I'll definitely connect with them on LinkedIn. Gents, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marty.